Hello, church. So, it's been 2 years since I have preached a sermon, and I feel like Pastor Art kind of set me up a little bit, having to follow those performances because they were absolutely terrific. Can we just give them a round of applause, please? And since it's been 2 years, I told myself that if the sermon is really bad, then yeah, I'll take credit for that. But if it's really good, I can't take credit. So, at the end, we'll figure it out and we'll see whether it was me or it was God speaking. All right, church? Everybody ready? All right, the title of my sermon is Valley of the Heroic.
Sounds good already.
Valley of the Heroic. As I spent some time trying to think what I would speak on today, I really felt like God put on my heart that I should tell my story. So today, it won't be a conventional sermon. I won't be going through a series of texts and showing you what God is trying to say to you. Instead, I'm going to be sharing my story and hoping that God will speak to you through that. Now, because it's not a conventional sermon, it was very difficult for me to put this together. It was tough. I was telling Jawanza earlier that I probably cried 100 times this week just putting together the sermon. And I felt like it would have been so much easier if I would have just, gotten a word together and said, you know what, I'm going to preach about this. But instead, I'm here talking about myself, one of the things that I cannot stand doing the most. So please give me some grace as I share with you what I'm going to be sharing today. Before I really get into the bread and butter of the story, as you all heard Pastor Art say, my name is Eric. I got saved at approximately 10 years old. It's a little blurry for me. I was in Puerto Rico with my mother, and she was reading this book that was very popular in the 90s. They used to play the ads on TV. It was called Power for Living. Does anybody remember that book? Power for Living. It was a blue book, white letters, and it had a series of testimonies from different celebrities and icons and people sharing how they came to know Jesus. And my mom read through this book, and she decided to give her life to the Lord. And I remember I was swimming in the water. I was having a good time with my cousin. I'm chilling. I'm just like, Puerto Rico water, the best water in the world, I'm enjoying myself. Oh, I see you. So I'm enjoying myself, my 10-year-old little me, having a good time. And my mom calls me out and she says, Eric, I want to talk to you about something, with a very serious face. And I was a little taken aback by that. I'm like, yeah, Mom, what do you want to talk to me about? So she tells me about the book she was reading and how she decided to give her life to Jesus. And she asked me, hey, I wanted to know if you wanted to do that too. And like any 10-year-old kid, I'm like, yeah, Mom, sure. And so she led me through this prayer, and I gotta be honest, I didn't exactly know what I was doing. I kind of understood, but I kind of didn't. But either way, I felt something. And so we started going to church. And at about 11 or 12 years old, I was already leading a small group. Me and my mom, we used to go to this small group, and the way they started it off, right, this is the funny part. They started it off as a way for all of the kids to go to another room so that the adults could talk about adult stuff. Get the kids out. Let's get them in another room. Who's the most mature out of them? Eric. Okay, he'll teach the Bible studies to them. Lo and behold, I took it pretty seriously. I led that small group for 15 years. I led that small group. 15 years. 15 long years in which I gained a lot of experience speaking to people, leading people, dealing with people, loving on people, and had so many fun moments and stories So many heartbreaking moments as well. 15 years is a long time. In that small group, I met my wonderful wife, Joanna. That's me being my typical self, being silly, and her looking at me like, can you take anything seriously? Us having a good time. That's where I met my wife, Joanna, and I joke around with her and tell her that as soon as she walked in the room, I laid out a 10-year plan on conquering her heart. I wish I did. I didn't. We spent a long time just being friends until we became best friends. And then one day, we call it the light switch. One day, the light switch went on. Now, the funny thing is, we always used to talk about how if we were both dating somebody different at the time, and we always talked about how if we ended up leaving those two people, right, that there would be nobody to date. There were no choices in our church. And we're just like, man, it really sucks. There's nobody there. Man. And she's like, yeah, I know, right? There's no choices. And I'm just like, yo, we're going to have to go to another church, man, and find somebody. Because it's just not happening here. And she's like, you're right. And there we were sitting right in front of each other. I remember us having that conversation at Tropicana Diner. And we were sitting right in front of each other. And a few years later, we were getting married. All throughout that time, I grew a lot. I learned a lot. And a lot happened to me. And it's Jack, did you open the right one? So, just ignore the text overlapping the other text. It says there, every portion of your life is part of God's masterpiece. Now, what's interesting is I did not know that the theme of Poetry Night was masterpiece. It's interesting, right? And here I am putting my sermon together. And the central point of today, as I tell you my story, I hope that by the end of this story, you will understand that every single piece of your life, every piece, the good, the bad, the in-between stuff, the laughing moments, the bad moments, is part of God's masterpiece. Now, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to tell you the main part of my story from 2014 to now. And I'm going to do so with intertwining it with what you guys were talking about here in Chestnut Street Community Church. In 2014 and 2015, I had this experience, this very specific experience that some of the people in the room were a part of, called the walk. Bija's already laughing. The walk is where the story starts. And it's an interesting story that I hope that at the end of it you will not say, this guy is crazy. Now, when I was about 15 years old, I want to say, God spoke to me. Well, at the time I didn't know it was God speaking to me, but I just was driving. No, my mom was driving and I was sitting in the passenger seat, and we were passing by this building, and I remember feeling in my heart, looking at that building and feeling in my heart that was where I was going to plant a church. And I hadn't even fully accepted the pastoral call at that time. I hadn't fully accepted that, and I just dismissed the thought quickly. Anybody here ever get a thought that just comes in and you're just like, that's not it. So I'm gonna let that one go. And that's exactly what I did. The thought came, and I just dismissed it immediately. 15 years old. And I remember there were several times throughout the years that I would feel that same thing. And I never shared it with anybody, except one time I shared it with my mom. Now, this is the thing. I'm going to be very honest with you. This is a big property, okay? It will take a lot of faith, a lot of money, a lot to be able to plant a church in this place. And that was one of the largest reasons why I didn't believe in it and why I dismissed it. And I remember telling my mom, and she was like, well, maybe it's the property that's in front of it. This much smaller property. And I remember that, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, maybe it's that. And I just continued to dismiss the thought. And I remember it came to a time when I was about 25 years old that I was getting the closest to God that I had ever gotten to him in my life. We were there. You guys know what I'm talking about? It was like, you tunnel vision, but good tunnel vision. Where you're just like, yeah, Jesus, let's get this done, And that's where I was at that time. But I remember there was a lack of certainty on my part. There was a lack of me being sure about a specific thing that you really, really, really should be sure about as a Christian, and that was hearing God's voice. And this is what would happen. What would happen is that, I would be going about my day, I would be living my life, and I would feel like the Lord was saying something to me. And I would be like, is that me or is that pizza I ate yesterday? Is that God speaking, or am I just kind of making this up? And I would battle with that. Anybody been there before? I would battle with that. And that feeling is one of those yucky feelings. Those feelings where you're just like, I don't know if it's you, is it you? You're telling me go talk to the baboons and preach the gospel, or you're telling me to go up to this random person who's checking me out at ShopRite and tell them about something so specific that if it's wrong, they're gonna look at me like I have 10 heads. And a lot of times we don't do it. A lot of times we don't do it, right, church? And I got tired of that. I hope there's some of you here today who are tired of that. I hope there's some of you here today who decide to leave all of that behind, because that's exactly what I did. I said, you know what, God? Whether it's the pizza I ate yesterday, whether it's me, whatever it may be, if I feel like it's you talking to me, if I feel like you're putting something in my heart, I'm going to do it. In faith, knowing that you're going to bless the position of my heart. So guess what happened? Anybody want to take a wild guess? He started telling me to do stuff. I set myself up. He started telling me to do stuff left and right. He started speaking to me. But you know what the good part about that? Yeah, I set myself up, but I set myself up. I positioned myself to be able to hear God better because he started speaking more. I started acting upon it. I started seeing the blessings that would come after it, and it confirmed the initial voice. So I knew, hey, you know what, Eric? You can hear God. And so if you are tired of it today, church, if you're tired of that feeling, act on the voice. He will redirect you if he has to. So, like I said, he started to speak more. The small group I was leading was getting closer and closer. I was preaching a lot more at my previous church. God was just using me. And it comes to one day where we're in our Bible study, our Bible class, small group, cell group, whatever you want to call it. And before class, we would always worship. Before anybody gave the word, we would always worship and pray, right? And we were worshiping God. I remember the day clear as day. We were just worshiping. And This is what God does. You ready? You ready? This is what God does. He says, go and take them to the place I told you about, to show them. What do you think I said? Oh no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that, God. They're going to look at me like I am crazy. They are going to think that I have lost it. There is no way that I am doing this. There is no way possible that I can make it through this. And he says to me, didn't you say you were going to do whatever you thought I was saying and believe? This is exactly what I said. I'm saying, I get down on my knees, I'm praying because I'm battling God. We're talking about it, and I'm like, this is not happening. But as soon as he said that, I just said, you're right. You're right. And like I said, I was on my knees, and as I started to get up, when I got to about halfway up, he says, start to pray in tongues in front of the people. And immediately I was like, yes, he gave me a way out, okay? Because this is why. We had somebody, like I said, a lot was happening with our small group, and I had this experience with a brother of mine in the small group, and he had received the gift of interpretation of tongues. Now, that's a rare gift, right? We don't see that one all the time now. And the reason why I knew he had received it was because we were sitting in the car, and God was just telling me, keep saying this one word. Kialai. Kialai. I just kept saying it, and he said, it means talk. It means talk, but don't say that. And he was telling me he's going to give him the gift of interpretation, and I'm freaking out because this is like stuff that I've never experienced before. You guys with me? Yeah. This is God moving in a supernatural way. It's biblical. It's stuff that we see in the Bible, but we don't see too much in American churches, right? But I'm sitting there, he's telling me what I'm saying. He's telling me he's going to give him the gift of interpretation, and he's telling me not to say nothing else. So I just keep saying it, and my friend's just sitting there. We're just sitting in the car, and I'm thinking, like, he's probably like, what's wrong with Eric? We were praying, and now he's just saying the same word over and over again. Now, what do you guys think happened? He did. And you know what's the crazy part? God was telling me that it meant to talk, right? You guys remember that I said that? I thought he was going to say talk. Instead, he said speak. If he would have said talk, I probably would have still accepted it as the gift. But it was like God was saying, yeah, I'm giving him the interpretation. Talk and speak are synonymous. So that was just like awe-inspiring me for me. And so later on we talked, and he said, yeah, I just kept hearing and seeing the word in English, but I was just like, I don't know what's going on right now, until he just said it. Now I know this might be a little bit out there for some of you, but I'm telling you, I live this. It's there. And so going back to when we were at the Bible study, I'm thinking God is going to use me to speak in tongues, right? I got this all set up, church. Listen, this is what I thought God was going to do, right? So I'm saying there, I'm thinking I'm going to speak in tongues, and he's going to get the interpretation about what God is trying to say. You guys with me? I'm like, yeah, boy, God gave me a way out. I'm good. We're going to be all right. I don't got to tell them myself. I'm going to speak in tongues. He's going to be like, yeah, there's this place we got to go to. I'm going to be like, yeah, God just told me that. We going to go, right? You guys going to be good. Y'all with me? Yeah, and I'm like, all right, thank you. You blessed me. You let me get a way out of this. You're such a good God. That is not what happened. So I want you to picture this. I start to pray in tongues, and yeah, he starts interpreting, but he starts giving a prophetic word to everybody that's there. And God starts to pour out. His presence just like fills this room. Like I'm telling you, it filled that room. It was strong. And people started speaking in tongues, and people were being healed from stuff, and people were just speaking out their freedom. And there was a part where God tells me to grab my friend Josue's hand. So I grab his hand, right? And I'm praying in tongues, and he's interpreting, and then he tells me to grab Jesse's hand, a girl that was in our Bible study, and hold her right here. And so he tells me, lift up their hands, and they're going to interpret. So I lift up his hands, and he says something in English, of course, the predominant language of our society. And then I put his hand down, speaking in tongues, put her hand up, and she interprets. Put her hand down, lift up his, he interprets. This is crazy stuff, right, people? Yeah, there's people in this room you can ask. I'm not lying. Put his hand down, lift hers up, she interprets. This is the funny part. After all is said and done, she says, yo, what was going on? Because the words, when Eric would lift my hand, I would say the words that I was seeing, and when I put it down, you would say the words that were inside my head. She didn't even know that she had received the gift of interpretation. So we go through this whole class, and I believe that the reason why it unfolded that way was because God was opening the spiritual eyes of his people. He was allowing them to have the vision to see. I said he was allowing them to have the vision to see. Sometimes we need that because our doubt clouds our vision. Right, church? So, immediately after that, God says to me, tell them now. At this point, I wasn't asking him, are you sure? At this point, I was full of faith, right? Because I just had this whole lifting up arms shindig. I was doing my dance, you know, I'm going through it. And you know, that just gave me a lot of faith. And at this point, I'm just like, yeah, we're going to do this. So I tell them, listen, and he gives me more direction too. I tell them, listen, I'm going to take you to a place that God put in my heart. I believe God is telling us to walk around that place for 7 days to claim that territory for him. If you come, you have to walk all 7 days. You are not obligated to go. You are not obligated to go. But if you come, you have to walk all 7 days. So a group of us go, and we walk around the property once. We just walk around it. You see this property right here on the bottom? That right there is the whole block. This is the front of the property. This is the back, right here. There's a parking deck that's to the left of that. It takes a lot to believe this. It was very hard for me to share it with those people, and don't think that because I'm making it sound nice that it's easy for me to share this with you today. But we went there, we walked around the property once, and we stopped in the front, and I asked everybody, what did you see? What do you feel God's speaking to you? And everybody just started sharing different things. I saw a building where we would send out missionaries. I saw a building where we helped the community and fed the homeless. I saw angels camped at the four corners. I saw this, I saw that. And it was wonderful, wonderful things that they said that they saw. And God gave me clear and serious direction on how we should walk, what order we should walk in. And we did that for 7 days. And throughout that time, the craziest thing that happened was that we were so united. There's a brother of mine that I'm very close with. He has a very heavy prophetic gift. And one day we walked into his house to visit him, and he almost started crying because he said, "You guys are answered prayer. This is the Acts Church. That's how close you are." And we were close. We were close. We were united. We were powerful. God was moving. God was doing his thing. Anybody here ever seen God do his thing? It's a beautiful sight. Isn't it, church? It's a beautiful sight. And so what happened is we received a warning. My friend Josue, him and his prophetic gift, he received from the Lord a vision. And we were in our living room, was where we usually had a Bible study. And he saw a snake coming in through the window and snatching people out through the window. And then it came in through the front door and snatched people out. And he told us, we have to protect this. You protect what's of value, right, church? Whatever you have value for, you protect it. And he said, we have to protect this because the enemy is going to try to attack us. So what do you think happened? We got attacked, and we got attacked heavy. Everybody in that group got attacked heavy. It reminded me of the first night. The first night we were walking, I'm with Joanna, and right at the end, when we're about to leave, her father calls her and says, "What are you doing right now that we're being attacked spiritually in the house?" He knew something was going on. Weirdest phone call I ever received, right? And Joanna looks at me, she's like, it was almost as if he was trying to, the enemy was trying to distract us immediately. And he started to attack everyone, and going into 2015, he was attacking everyone, and people started to leave. People started to walk away. Going into 2015 was when I felt the most heroic in my life, and then it all came tumbling down. 2015, I stood there. I was a superhero. God was doing amazing things in my life and in the lives of those around me. And then those amazing things started to get attacked. It was tough. Nothing, and the craziest part was that nothing happened to me personally. And I felt like that was purposeful. I felt like his attack against me was for me to have to watch everyone in pain, everyone in hurt, and everyone to leave. And boy, did they leave. In 2016, while you guys were talking about higher, I was going lower. I reached the lowest point in my life. In the year that I married that beautiful woman right there. The only good thing that happened to me that year was marrying her. But do you know how hard, how difficult it is to be extremely depressed in the first year of your marriage? By the end of 2016, I was officially diagnosed by a psychiatrist as severely depressed, a single episode, meaning that it wasn't gonna keep coming back. My depression almost destroyed our marriage before it even got started. The most highlighted moment I remember is sitting at our table, eating lunch, and just crying. And Joanna looked at me and she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I don't know." I tried to think. I journeyed through my mind, trying to find what was wrong. And I could think of nothing. I couldn't think of anything because nothing was wrong at that moment. In reality, I was very depressed because I had led this small group for 15 years. And I was heavily blaming myself for everyone leaving. I was blaming myself for not covering them in prayer, for them becoming sad and depressed in their own ways. Joanna, at the time, was dealing with a chronic disease called fibromyalgia. She was constantly in pain. Does everybody here know what fibromyalgia is? It's just pain all over your body, severe pain all over your body. We'd wake up and she'd be like, "I'm in so much pain." There were some days where she felt like she couldn't even get out of bed. And that was just weighing on me because there was literally nothing I can do. Thank God she is healed today. Give you an update on that story. But during that time, it was weighing heavily on me. In that year, I got a severe flu that lasted 3 weeks. It was tough. Right after I got my flu shot. But we're not going to talk about that. The first time I got my flu shot too, but I said we're not going to talk about it, so I'm going to let it go. Out of nowhere, I started having severe skin issues. Right? You got eczema? Yeah, I had eczema. It got bad. All my life I had dealt with it. And I have like patchy skin right here is the only place I have patchy skin. But then my back in the summer gets really, really itchy. But during 2016, my whole body was severely itching. And I was going to the doctors for like 8 months. To this day, I'm still dealing with the itching. I don't know what it is. I stopped going to the doctors because they had treated me for almost everything. And I got tired of it. They treated me for scabies first. Then they just kept going down the line, found out I was allergic to certain things, but still I took those things out, still dealing with it. And it was bad. Our first apartment, I loved that apartment. It was something special about that apartment. It wasn't anything crazy about it, but we just really, it was very cozy, is the word Joanna used. She would always turn to me, she's like, "I love our apartment. It's so cozy." And I'd be like, "Yeah, I like it too." Very cozy. But the problem was, there was another tenant who was extremely, I'm gonna say it, nasty. And so there was an infestation coming into our apartment from the other apartment. And I know that's stressful. If you've had to deal with it, you know it is stressful, especially if you're doing, like Joanna was bleaching our walls. It's like, she's taking the bleach out, she's pouring it everywhere. She's like, "I gotta do something." I'm waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, cleaning the kitchen. You can ask my mom, that's not me, I don't do that. But we're trying to figure something out. And it just kept getting worse and worse. And it was disgusting. It was tough. We moved out of there as soon as our lease was up. Because I was married as a husband, I was trying to fulfill my duty of helping around in the household. Hallelujah. And I helped out with cleaning dishes and stuff like that, but the chemicals were making my hands peel and crack. Me and Joanna, we got new cars. So I'm gonna get a car. First day my car got hit. I went to the doctor after I hurt my knee in like 2052. I gained a lot of weight, and it's been a battle since then. But I went to the doctor, and he said, hey, let's test your metabolism. When he saw my results, you know it's weird when a doctor sees your results, and they go, whoa. The doctor went, whoa, you have severely low metabolism. My man straight up told me, he said, you could go on a diet and still not lose weight. How does that feel? Imagine if the doctor told you that. So you telling me I'm gonna go on a diet and still not lose weight? Yep, your metabolism is that bad. Had stomach issues, going to the doctor for that too. Was having a lot of cramping, stomach issues. Doctors were like, hey, you're healthy. I don't know what it is. Was having problems at my church at the time. A lot of it was me just feeling left alone. And even when we decided that we were going to start visiting other churches, I would walk into church. The last time I had went to church before I started becoming a member here was here. And during worship, I started crying. Now, what do you usually cry for during worship? Anybody? God's moving in your life. Like, the Lord is ministering to me today. Tears, 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 right? I'm crying because I do not want to be here, and not because of anything that you guys were doing, but just the simple act of being in a church felt oppressive to me. It felt like a weight on my shoulders, and I decided I needed some time off. Was having issues at work, and then, to top it all off, I started to question everything about the walk. I told myself I was crazy, and I told myself that I led those people incorrectly. And I believed that. Not I believed that, I believed that. What I realize now is that the magnitude of the attack was determined by the magnitude of the purpose we had been placed in our lives. When you take purposeful steps and you are walking towards God, you become a target. Because you are walking in purpose, as opposed to not walking in purpose. When you're not walking in purpose, I don't gotta mess with you. You messing yourself up, right? But so the magnitude of the attack had to be proof to me that it was real, and I had to realize that. I had to understand that. I'm going to read to you Ephesians chapter 2. Verses 1 through 10. And I want you to listen to the elements of what God is saying about you. Ephesians chapter 2, verses 1 through 10. And you were dead in the trespasses and sins in which you once walked, following the course of this world, following the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that is now at work in the sons of disobedience, among whom we all once lived in the passions of our flesh, carrying out the desires of the body and the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, like the rest of mankind. But God, But God, being rich in mercy because of the great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in our trespasses, made us alive together with Christ. By grace you have been saved. And raised us up with him and seated us with him in the heavenly places in Christ Jesus, so that in the coming ages he might show the immeasurable riches of his grace and kindness towards us in Christ Jesus. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing, it is the gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast. And this last verse, it has to hit you like a ton of bricks. For we are his workmanship. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. You are God's masterpiece. He is the one that holds the pen to your story. He is the one that is shaping you. He is the one that is the master behind the plan. And God sure don't make mistakes. If God is in control of every situation, of every person in this room, how dare we even question any moment that we go through? How dare we question those moments when he says, you are my workmanship, you are my masterpiece, I am molding you. Yeah, these situations may look crazy to you. Yeah, you might be a little stressed out. Yeah, you might be very stressed out, but I'm with you. And when you enter into the valley of the heroic and you walk as a hero in the valley, let me tell you that there is something to be said about the valley as opposed to the mountain. Yeah, the mountain is beautiful. We're standing atop the mountain. We're looking down. We're at the top. We roar at the top. But let me tell you something about the valley. Down there is where you get your voice to roar at the mountain. Every portion of your life is part of God's masterpiece. Every portion, the valley and the mountain, the highs and the lows, they come together and they make a beautiful story. You are that beautiful story. I am that beautiful story. Don't ever question that. As low as you get, I got so low that I questioned everything, how amazing God was. We read the Bible and we see the Israelites, we see the Hebrews, seeing the sea split, walking through it and seeing it close and eat up their enemies. And we say, how dumb are they to want to go back for some leeks and onions? They wanted to go back there because they had Lay's chips. Yeah, we were in slavery, but they gave me Doritos every day. Don't you dare forget what God has done in your life. That's the moment where you need to feed on those things. That is the moment where you need to live off of those things. They need to bring life to you because you got to remember what God has done. You with me, church? You have to remember what God has done. So, according to what I've been told and from what I have observed, this church is very well versed in the story and life of the amazing man known as Batman. We all owe that to a gentleman that will not be named, Jag. Is it correct to say that? You guys know who Batman is, right? Shout out to Jag. I see you. Everybody, there's Batman history that everybody should know, right? Everybody knows that Batman He's the hero of Gotham City, right? He's their hero, and his parents were murdered by a criminal when he was a child. Everybody knows that, right? So he vows his life to fight crime. He's a vigilante. And late last year, there was an unprecedented occurrence that happened, something that never happens. If you know Batman, you know this don't happen. Batman proposes to Catwoman. He says to her, marry me. And Batman and Catwoman, they've been known to always be doing this dance, you know? She's a thief, and he's the symbol of justice. And they've been doing this dance forever, but they've always had this love. And the story leads up to this point where he asks her to marry him. Oh man, the story is so interesting. They get closer than ever before. They share intimate stories with each other. They learn, they know each other more deeply as they lead up. She said yes, by the way. And they lead up to the day of their marriage. And these specific things happen, these weird things happen. And as I was reading the comics, I'm a big Batman fan, if that's not evident. And what happens in the comics is that there's this time-traveling hero. His name is Booster Gold. Anybody ever heard of Booster Gold? He ain't no Batman. Yeah, see? Exactly. Booster Gold, he's a time traveler. And he tries to he's going crazy trying to figure out what gift to give to Batman. He's like, what do you give to the man who has everything? Right? He says, he decides that the gift he's going to give to Batman for his wedding is he's going to go back in time and save his parents. Pretty decent gift, right? No? Y'all don't want your parents? Pretty decent gift, right? He goes back in time, saves his parents, and then the future comes, and there's a world without Batman where Gotham is in complete disarray. Overtaken by crime. Yeah, Bruce still has his parents. He lives there with them. But the city is completely destroyed, and it even affects the whole world. From one man. Crazy, right? Later on, the Joker, he comes and everybody knows the Joker, right? The Joker comes, and what does he try to do? He tries to kill Catwoman. What's his reason? He says, I have to kill you because if he's happy, he can't stop me. I have to kill you because if he's happy, he can't stop me. We're going to hit this one in Spanish real quick. ¿Qué? What? Now, y'all know Joker's a psycho, but that sounds like some next level type of thinking. So, Selena, Catwoman, she hears about this and she breaks the engagement. And in the issue they're supposed to get married in, they are both writing a letter to each other. And the letter is happening all throughout the issue. And she writes to him at the end of the letter. She says to him, I don't know if you guys can read it from up there, but I'll read it to you. You are still a child, Bruce, a hurt child. These past months, the desert, the boy, Superman, Wonder Woman, Ivy, but what you do with that hurt, I saw the hero it made you. And then as if to prove what I saw, Booster, a world in horror because you're content. Joker, knowing if you were settled, you couldn't stop him. You are an engine that turns pain into hope. You are an engine that turns pain into hope. If we are happy, and we could be so happy, if I help that lonely boy with the lonely eyes, I kill that engine. I kill Batman. I kill the person who saves everyone. And how can I do that? How can I love you so much and look in your eyes into that endless blue, that gorgeous blue that calls me, knowing to save the world, heroes make sacrifices. That's the lesson of every story I wish I could give my life, but I can't. I have to give more. My sacrifice is my love. It's you. I remember being so mad when I read this because I'm like, they're not going to get married. We become completely invested in characters that we enjoy, right? And I'm just like, DC, why y'all stunting? Why y'all not? Why aren't you letting them get married? But this story has so much weight to it. She says you are an engine that turns pain into hope. She says that heroes make sacrifices. To be a hero, to go higher, sometimes you have to make sacrifices. In 2017, what was the theme of the year? 2017, what was the theme of the year? Purpose was interesting for me because 2017 for me was a rebuilding year. I had become like rubble strewn throughout a construction site. So God needed to rebuild me. I needed to believe in myself again. I needed a reminder. I needed to be reminded of all the good things that God had done in my life. Sometimes we need that. And I remember that as that year was going by and as my faith was being built again, one of the things that I didn't do was give up on God. I gave up on church. I had given up on a lot of people, but I did not give up on God. I did not let myself do that. And I needed to remember who I was and who God had called me to be. And one day I was driving by this pretty cool church who is known in their community to have really cool signs. And I posted this sign on September 6, 2017. Oh, snap, that says Chestnut Street Community Church. Oh, snap. All right, so I posted this on my Instagram. And it says on there, it says, you've been assigned this mountain to show others it can be moved. You have been assigned this mountain to show others it can be moved. I'm gonna need some water. Because I need you guys to understand. As you walk through life, as you take steps, as you live, and as you journey, sometimes you're on that journey and sometimes you get to a place where you're like, how am I gonna get past this? This mountain is huge. Do I try to climb it? Do I walk around it? I sure am not going under it. And we're tempted to be mad at God, right? Is it just me? Anybody ever been tempted to be mad at God? And we're tempted to give up. You know what? I'm just gonna set up camp here. I've gotten pretty far. This is okay. I'll set up a little tent here. I'll stay here. This mountain is far too big for me to move. But the problem with setting up camp, which many of us do, the problem with setting up camp is that you are constantly looking at the mountain that you intended to climb. You are constantly looking at this huge mountain that's before you. You have set up camp because you said, you know what, I just can't do this. And every morning when you wake up, you open your door, you look outside, and the mountain's like, hello. How are you? Nice to see you today. I'm still here. Anybody ever had one of those before? You know you got to climb the mountain. You know you have to get past it. Whatever you have to do to get past it, do it. Because it's your assignment. It is your assignment to get past it, so that when somebody comes back around, you've gotten so good at climbing up this mountain, you've gotten so past it, somebody comes and they look at the mountain and you just come by and you say, you know what? I did this before. I did this before. You could do it. It can be done. It's possible. It's possible. You have the ability inside of you to be able to climb this mountain. And God will place people around you with similar mountains and similar giftings so that you can be like, you know what? Let's do this together. Let's do this together. But if you set up camp, you will never get past the things that you are supposed to get past. Do whatever you need to do to get past, church. Whatever you need to do. Fight. Some of you need to have your fighting spirit reawakened. Some of you need your fighting spirit to be reawakened. You have given up the fight. And to others, it looks like you're fighting. To others, it looks like you're climbing. But you know every night you go in that tent. I'm hoping that right now you can hear my story and that you can see that it is possible. We tell ourselves that our pain is never going to be a big deal to anyone. We tell ourselves that everything that we've experienced, no one will ever understand. If you look to your left and to your right, this room is full of people who will understand pain. You are not as alone as you think. You are not as alone as you think, church. So there's two main things that I want you to understand from that. Two main things. One, that you are called to be intimate with the people that are around you. To enter into an intimate relationship with them. To be clear with them. To love them deeply. To put yourself out there to be loved and to be hurt. And two, you have to do something with what's inside of you. You might think, oh, you know what? I just got too much pain inside of me. Let me tell you, pain is powerful. You can use pain for God's glory. I have seen so many talented people in this world waste their talent. So if we are talking about purpose, purpose always comes with a reminder. Purpose always comes with a reminder to remind you of what you were called to do. Coming out of depression, everything about it was still true, but it was repurposed by God. You ever repurpose something? Recycle something? It was meant for something and somebody said, you know what, this is worthless, let's throw it out. And you said, no, wait, I could use that. A lot of you have disqualified yourselves because of the things that you have been through, and you think that you cannot do anything anymore, that you can never do something for God, or that you could never have an impact on this world. But let me tell you something. God can repurpose your pain. God can repurpose your struggles. God can repurpose every single thing you've been through and use it for his purpose and his will. Every piece of your life is part of God's masterpiece. God spoke this to me as I was preparing. He said, what we Christians in America call miracles, God calls aligning us to his purpose. He was going to do that anyway. Expect more. In America, we call small things miracles. God gave me a parking spot. What a miracle. We pray for things, yes, that we want deeply, and because we receive them from God, we treat it as if it were a miracle. And a lot of times, those are things that God was going to do no matter what. God was going to establish you with purpose. God was going to place you to speak into people's lives. God was going to do that anyway. Expect more from God. Amen. A life of purpose expects miraculous things from God, expects God to move greatly through his people. You need to expect more, church. That doesn't mean to not praise God for what he's doing in your life. Just don't treat it like it's a miracle when it's not. This book right here is full of miraculous things. Many of you, maybe not all of you, but many of you have seen God do miraculous things like heal people. I know I have. Let's call miracles, miracles. Let's call purpose, purpose. And our theme for this year, rest. I became a member of this church with Joanna on the year that you guys were talking about rest. And I took some time to rest before I started to serve. But coming into this year, I realized that the problem was that I thought that my circumstances determined what I was worth living for. I thought that because my circumstances were so ugly that I wasn't worth anything. I thought I wasn't worthy of rest. I thought every day I needed to try to climb up the mountain just to come tumbling down. And in those thoughts, I started to live according to a worth that was not in line with what God had determined for me. What I needed to know was that what I was worth determined my circumstance, not the other way around. When you have purpose, when you have worth inside of you, you are worthy of this beautiful thing we call rest. Those circumstances sharpen you for the kingdom work that God has for you. Amen? Amen. It sharpens you. So all in all, what the devil meant as destruction to me, what he meant to destroy me with, God used as rest. And here I am, ready to go. Every portion of your life is part of God's masterpiece. Every high, every low, every pain, every struggle, every laugh, every joy. All of it comes together. Every piece comes together to form God's workmanship. I'd prefer that you don't turn to Romans. I want to read it to you. If you want, you can close your eyes and just listen to what the word says concerning you. Romans chapter 8, verses 18 through 31 say, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed in us. For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now. And not only the creation, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for adoption as sons, the redemption of our bodies. For in this hope we are saved. Now hope that is seen is not hope, for who hopes for what he sees? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience. Likewise, the Spirit helps us in our weakness, for we do not know what to pray for as we ought. But the Spirit himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. And he who searches hearts knows that it is the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for the saints according to the will of God. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good. For those who are called according to his purpose. For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, in order that he might be the firstborn among many brothers. And those who he predestined, he also called, and those who he called, he also justified, and those who he justified, he also glorified. What then shall we say to these things? How do we respond? If God is for us, who can be against us? Amen. Who can be against us? If God is for you, who dare come against you? Who dares to even try? If God is for you, and let me tell you, public service announcement, he is surely for you. He's your number one fan. Who can come against you? Nobody. Nobody can come against you, because God is the writer of your story. If you are his workmanship, if he is the one that sends you down that line of justification, if he's the one that takes you through it, it doesn't matter the circumstance that comes against you. It doesn't matter what person tries to say whatever they want to say about you. It doesn't even matter what you think about yourself. What is true is true. You are called according to his purpose. And he will finish his work. He will finish his work. He will finish his work. I stand before you today as a testimony not of a finished work, but a work that's still in progress. And I want you all to know that there is nothing wrong with being in progress. There is nothing wrong with being in progress. There's a key word in there, progress. Every part of your life is part of God's masterpiece. Many of us have been through valleys. Many of us have been through pain. Many of us have been through hurt. And just know that God is with you in the valley and in the mountain. He's there every step of the way. Amen.